One seriously messed up family full of dirty, dark secrets? Oh, I'm in. Hello, my bookworms! Today's review is on Tarnished by Julia Crouch. For those of you who do not like swearing, please cover your ears now because I'm going to say some very dirty words and I will give you a thumbs up when all is okay. Tarnished is seriously one of the most fucked up books I have read in a good while, and I mean that in a good way. You have this very strange ass family, this girl who remembers nothing of her past, and she's a lesbian, and it is so fucked up and crazy that you're just kind of like sitting there like, what is happening? What is happening? And it's just awesome. Tarnished starts off with a great hook. You have this guy, and he's a little bit slow, and he is out on the beach side with his metal detector in the middle of the night. While looking for just things he could collect, he stumbles across a woman's head. Now, what runs through his mind is a little strange. He's like, oh, she's pretty, and he's just like holding this head in his hand, and normal people would be freaking out, but he takes the head to the police, and that's where it leaves off. I'm going to do this for the next chapter and the chapter after that so you guys can understand the format of this book. The next chapter after that is in first person. You're in someone's mind, and it's this little girl telling herself to breathe, and she's kind of having these flashbacks almost of what is happening around her. The chapter after that is third person. You're in Peg's point of view, how she's seen everything almost. You can pretty much piece together that flashback, that first person is Peg's memories. So throughout the story, you're going to be getting this big thing that says then, and just like these little italicized flashbacks of her trying to pull out these memories of her past and then switching over to the current times. The story really starts with Peg looking after her grandmother who's suffering from Alzheimer's, and you have her bedridden aunt. Now you find out why her aunt is bedridden, and it's because she's severely obese. I mean, severely. She's like 40 stones, as it says in the book, which I calculated, and it's like 500 some freaking pounds. Peg commutes from her home in London to this little town that her grandmother lives in, and she's a lesbian, you find out, and she works in a library, and that's pretty much it for most of the story. You're just going on this journey with Peg, trying to pull out these memories. It really kicks off when she's looking after her grandmother, and her grandmother starts kind of crying almost and talking about her father Raymond. Now, Peg knows nothing about her father. She can't remember him. She can't anything. She just knows he abandoned her to his mother. Her grandmother's talking about Raymond, saying she misses Raymond, this and that, and she finds this little coaster that has a flamingo on it, and she's like, oh, Raymond's club is this, and it has an address on it. So Peg's automatically like, I have a way to get in contact with my father. Yes, that's awesome. However, the grandmother's still going on, and she starts talking about a little boy named Keithy. And she's like, I miss my Keithy. I want my Keithy. And she starts crying. So Peg, in a moment of confusion, goes to her aunt and is like, who is Keithy? Her aunt tells her it's her uncle, and he died when he was a little boy, that he fell off the pier and drowned. Okay, that's heart wrenching, that's horrible, and you feel really bad for Peg. Peg finds out where her father's at. He lives in Spain, and talking to her girlfriend, Peg decides, I'm going to go to Spain. I'm going to get in contact with my father. Usually, the contacts with the fathers who abandon you never goes well. They want nothing to do with you, but she shows up at Spain, and he's thrilled to see her. He's kind of doing one of those, I've been wanting to get into contact with you. I just don't know how. I didn't know when, and he has a whole new family, and she kind of feels left out of it, and she feels this anger towards him. He tries to buy her off when she starts asking questions about the past, telling him that he needs to go and see his mother, that she's ill, she's gonna die soon, he needs to go see her, and he's like, no. He tries to pay Peg off, and she leaves in the heat of the moment and escapes over a gate because dogs are chasing her or something. The story continues, and her girlfriend Laz is trying to convince her to take the money from her dad that he owes her so much, but Peg refuses because she thinks there's kind of like something tied to it, like she's gonna have to do something for it. So Peg comes out and she tells her aunt, I went and I saw my father, and her aunt freaks out. And her aunt starts telling her what a horrible man he is, she shouldn't be seeing him, things like that. And Peg can't understand why. The truth then comes out. Her aunt tells her the reason Keithy died is because her father pushed him He killed him. He pushed him off the pier and watched him drown. Like, she says it happened. He was little. He didn't know what he was doing. But they lied and they told their mother that he simply fell because it would kill their mother to know that her brother had pushed him. So as a reader, you kind of start to feel like this anger towards her father. And you're just kind of like, he's not a good man. And you start seeing Anne's point of view on that because you're like, well, he won't come see his sick mother. You know, he's trying to pay Peg off so she won't ask questions about the past. And he killed his little brother. Oh, it gets better. Peg, while she was visiting her father, discovers that he had been in jail for a period of time. Curious as to why, Peg then starts to do a little bit of research because her aunt won't tell her. Peg discovers that her father killed her mother in a mercy killing. Now, for those of you who don't know what a mercy killing is, it's basically where you help someone commit suicide, and I don't see what's wrong with it personally, but this isn't about opinions. She finds out her mother had cancer and that she only had a few months to live, so she's kind of understanding why her father did the mercy killing, but in the same token, she's still angry with him about it because she didn't know about it. No one told her, and she just assumed that her father up and left her instead of going to jail. The story continues with her grandmother ending up in the hospital. Her grandmother had wandered outside during a winter's night, slipped and fell on ice, and broke her hip or something, and she was placed into the ICU unit and being taken care of and things like that. The hospital's saying that she either needs to go into home or she needs a worker at home constantly with her to watch her, take care of her, and Peg can't do it because she can't commute every day to go see them every single day. Her aunt has someone who comes and takes care of her, but to take care of the mother as well is just too much for the one woman, so Peg decides, okay, we'll get her a social worker. We'll have someone come and take care of her. Her grandmother is a classic case of a hoarder. Now, her house was filthy, littered with things everywhere. Peg has to go through all of her grandmother's belongings, sort out what's needed, what isn't needed, and she begins to stumble upon this family history almost. In a box, Peg discovers some photos, some she assumed of Keithy, others of her father with this woman who was not her mother, and then a picture of her aunt before she became obese with a man she was engaged to. Peg becomes interested in this photo of her father with this woman because she wants to know who she is. She asks her aunt who she is, and her aunt just rips up the photo, doesn't tell her anything, is acting very weird. Laz then moves into the house, well, not moves in, but she kind of comes to help out Peg, and it's then discovered that Peg is a lesbian because she never came out to her family. She never told them. So her aunt is all upset about it and pissed off and just like, she's filth and, you know, you're going to kill your grandmother with this news and yada, yada, yada. Cleaning out the house, they start to discover more things. They find a key to some secret place that they don't know about, and they find more photographs, more clippings. So they decide to go and investigate. Peg shows the photo of her dad with this girl to Laz, and Laz is one of those weirdos who read true crime books. Very handy, by the way. Looking at the photo, Laz figures that this girl is one of the missing girls from one of her books. So she goes and she does a little bit of research on it, and Peg starts to become kind of freaked out by it because she's like, oh my god, this girl's been murdered, and there's a picture of her. Peg also discovers a picture of a little girl. Now, this little girl doesn't seem familiar to her at first, but she's wearing the same school uniform that Peg used to wear. So Peg starts to kind of become freaked out even more by all of this. Throughout all of this, all of the memories are somewhat coming back to Peg. She's starting to piece everything together and starting to see things for what they really are. And she's starting to become kind of almost freaked out by it and at the same time excited. Laz, on the other hand, has no remorse, no sympathy, no nothing. She's just kind of pushing forward like, I know your father killed this girl and this and that, and she's like, we should go to Spain, I'll confront him, this and that, and just nothing. Peg, however, decides that she's going to get in contact with her father. She's going to take him up on the offer for the money, so that way she can pay for her grandmother in the hospital and help out at the house and just things like that, and she's just using it to help her family, not for herself. Things take a horrible turn when her grandmother dies. Now, she doesn't die in hospital. She comes home, and when she's home, Peg begins asking questions about these names she now has, and her grandmother kind of acts weird about it, and then, you know, wanders outside to find these pictures that Peg threw away and, you know, dies of a heart attack outside. At her grandmother's funeral, her father returns. It's kind of like almost a little family blowout almost. and Laz decides this is the opportune time during the funeral to talk to Peg's father about murder. I'm sorry, this girl seriously needs to get her priorities in check. The girl she's in love with, her girlfriend Peg's grandmother just died, and her father's back in town, and she decides then is the time? Like, why not wait? You wait for that kind of thing. You let the mourning happen, seriously. Basically, Laz kind of ruins the entire funeral because there's a big blowout, and she walks off, Peg walks off, and they have this big fight, and Laz leaves. After talking to her father, Peg's all upset, so she gets drunk and she hangs around upstairs in her bedroom. The next morning, she goes to talk to her aunt about everything, and her aunt starts talking weird about Laz, like, oh, she's very flighty. I'm sure she's going to leave you now, and things like that. In that same time, her aunt is saying that her father's talking about building them a house in Spain so that way Peg can take care of her aunt. This freaks Peg out because she's kind of all like, I don't want to be the one to take care of you. I want to live my life. I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to be trapped here. So she kind of runs away almost, and when she returns back to her home in London, she finds Laz is missing. At first she just assumes, Laz left her, but she starts looking around and she sees some of the things that Laz holds dear to her, like her baking things, scattered about and dirty, and she's the one who's the OCD one who keeps it all clean and orderly. She tries to call Laz, but Laz doesn't answer her phone, so she begins to kind of almost panic. Now she gets this phone call from this guy at this garage that her and Laz went to but couldn't get into, and he's telling her that she should get there quickly because something strange is happening. So they get to the garage and they break in, and there is Laz tied to a chair. Now Laz has been drugged and she's freaking out and she's trying to show them something. She pulls down this curtain and there is a body pinned to the wall. I mean, it's old and it's burned and it's decapitated and it's horrible, and it's that of a little girl. Do you see what's happening here? Because she remembers the girl in that little picture, and it's the girl who used to bully her in school that went missing after she told her grandmother she was being bullied. So she begins to freak out and she's like, oh my god, my family killed this little girl. They get Laz out of the garage and they're assuming her father had done it and they don't know what to do anymore. And this white van pulls around like they're gonna go get Laz, and they start freaking out because she's not there, and then they set the place on fire. They head back to the aunt's and grandmother's house where, they start talking about everything, and Peg had already discovered that her aunt had this caller thing so she could communicate to her grandmother because she's in a separate part of the house. And it's two-way, so her aunt's been listening in on every conversation she's ever had. Peg goes in, she confronts her aunt about it, and I'm not telling you guys the ending, I'm leaving it there. Yeah. On to the things that I liked about this book and the things I didn't like. What I didn't like about this book is how slow-moving it was at times. There were parts of it that I'm sitting there like, okay, this isn't really important. It doesn't really need to be there. I'm bored. Speed this up type of situation going on. Peg also bothered me tremendously. She is one of those weak-willed characters that, bend to everybody else's will. And if I had to read the word sorry one more time in this book, I was going to scream. What I did like about this book is the mere fact that it was suspenseful until the end. Once as you find out that there is something going on with her family, that there's murders happening, you're drawn into the story and you're like, is it the father? Who is it? What is happening? And then they find that little dead girl and you're like, oh my god, they are murderers. Holy shit. I loved that aspect of it. It kept you entertained until the end. And when you find out who's actually behind it, you're just kind of like, shit, man. Shit. All in all, I really did like this book. It was very well written. It was fast-paced at the end. The beginning bit, like a good half of the book, was very slow, though. I would give this book a B. Yes, a B, because I did enjoy it. It did keep me entertained until the end, and I really just was sitting there like, and I couldn't put it down towards the end because I was like, I need to know, and that's what you need in a book. That is really what you need. It's the picking out time! If You Find Me by Emily Murdoch. I will admit this, I'm not too sure what this book's about when I bought it, so this will be a surprise for all of us. Carrie is keeping a terrible secret. If she tells, it could destroy her future. If she doesn't, Will she ever be free? For almost as long as she can remember, Carrie has lived in a camper van in the heart of the woods with a drug addict mother and a 6-year-old sister, Janessa. Her mother routinely disappears for a week at a time, leaving the girls to cope alone. Survival is Carrie's only priority, until strangers show up and change everything. Tarnished by Julie Crouch is a B. I highly recommend it to you guys who like the suspenseful, page-turning, heart-pounding stories where you're just kind of like, oh snap. Keep tuned for If You Find Me by Emily Murdoch. Until then, you guys, happy reading.